A welcoming gesture that feels oddly threatening. Time that seems to stretch and warp. Good evening, and welcome to Swamp of the Lost. Tonight we explore a tale of an ordinary traveler who stumbles into a place where reality bends and nothing is quite as it appears. Join us as we unravel the mysteries lurking just beneath the surface of everyday life. Remember, such a world might be closer to you than you think. Noodles served with a side of terror. I had a pretty scary experience the other day. It happened while I was out of town for work. Let's call the place Raven City. The actual name of the town is that of a smaller bird, but Raven City will do for now. It was just after noon and I was driving. My destination was a bit further ahead, where I had booked a hotel near the sea. Raven City was just a town I was passing through on my way there. As I approached the town, I felt an inexplicable loneliness. How can I describe it? It was as if all the color had been drained from the scenery. The size of the town wasn't much different from my hometown, but there was a sense of desolation that made my chest tighten a little. I was hungry, but I hesitated. Should I drive a bit further to the next town, or maybe stop at a roadside restaurant? I was wavering, thinking, eating in a town with this atmosphere. Just then I noticed an old woman coming out of a soba noodle shop. She seemed to be smiling and beckoning me. Almost as if pulled in, I turned into the shop's parking lot. I hadn't really planned on eating buckwheat noodles, but I thought, well, this place will do. I hear soba shops often have good curry too. With these thoughts, I got out of my car. The old woman was still waiting in front of the shop, seemingly beaming at me. I was surprised to find such a cheerful-looking person in such a desolate town. As I approached her with a sense of wonder, I suddenly froze in my tracks. The woman wasn't smiling at all. Her eyes were just narrowed as if squinting in bright sunlight. Her mouth was unnaturally wide open, baring her teeth. Somehow this had appeared to me as a welcoming smile. Of course, her eyes weren't smiling at all. It was too late to go back to my car in Nassau, so I went into the shop. Come to think of it, the woman hadn't even said welcome. I decided I should leave as soon as possible. Ordering something hot would take too long to eat, so I ordered cold buckwheat noodles. The shop owner poked his head out from the back and said, "Welcome. Are you here on business?" I didn't feel like answering honestly, so I lied. "No, just out for a bit of sightseeing." "I see, then you can take your time," he replied. Somehow that one comment made me feel like I couldn't leave too quickly. Soon after, my noodles arrived. The taste was neither good nor bad. Maybe it was the town's atmosphere, but even the noodles seemed colorless. Just as I was about to finish, the owner brought over some buckwheat soup. Not many people around here drink this, so we usually don't serve it anymore. "But would you like to try some?" The owner said this, placed the container on the table, and retreated to the back without waiting for a response. I thought I'd take just one sip and then leave. As I was pouring the soup into a cup, I felt someone watching me. I turned around to find the owner and the old woman staring intently at me from behind a pillar. I realized I had wandered into a strange shop. As I stood up after taking one sip, the owner suddenly appeared behind me and asked, "Which baseball team do you support?" I don't really watch baseball. I'm more into soccer," I replied. "Oh, is that so? Then which soccer team do you support?" he pressed. When I answered, he asked, "Oh, there's a team like that? What kind of team is it?" I briefly explained that it was a team known for its strong defense, but as soon as I finished, he asked, "Do you watch movies?" The owner didn't seem interested in the content of my answers. It was as if he was just trying to keep the conversation going, or rather, trying to buy time to keep me there somehow. Soon the old woman brought over a small plate of pickles. "The buckwheat soup tastes good with these pickles," she said. Feeling increasingly uneasy about the shop, I glanced up at the clock, pretending to check the time. "Oh, I've stayed too long. I have an appointment to get to. Thank you for the meal," I said, standing up. The old woman grasped my hand and said, "Oh my, an appointment. What time is it at?" Caught off guard, I couldn't answer immediately. I remembered that when I had pretended to look at the clock earlier, I hadn't actually checked the time properly. I thought it had been just past 1 p.m., so I said, "I absolutely need to be there by 1:30. "Oh, is that so? Where is it? Where exactly? She pressed. It's about 15 minutes from here, I answered. Oh, then you still have plenty of time. That clock over there is more than 30 minutes fast, she said, tightening her grip on my arm and trying to force me back into my seat. I found myself sitting down again. I checked my phone just to be sure, and indeed, the clock on the pillar was more than 30 minutes fast. I thought I'd have one more cup of buckwheat soup before leaving. I poured about half a cup and spoke to the owner standing behind me. How much was the soba? I'll pay now. When the owner didn't answer, I looked at the menu on the wall. Seeing this, the owner said, It's 1,000 yen. I took out a 1,000 yen note from my wallet and tried to hand it to the owner, but he just bowed his head without taking it. I'll leave it here then, I said, gulped down the soup and fled the shop. I was nervous about being grabbed from behind on my way out, but thankfully that didn't happen. As I was about to drive out of the parking lot, I saw the owner and the old woman standing side by side in front of the shop. Their faces were expressionless. That's the only way I can describe it. Between them stood a child about kindergarten age, holding both their hands. The child must have been in the back of the shop. Perhaps a grandchild, though the child seemed a bit too young to be theirs. I hate to say it, but the child looked filthy, as if covered in mud. If that child had been wandering around the shop while I was eating, it would have been quite unappetizing. The child's hair was dirty and matted. I thought they should take better care of the child's appearance, especially in a food establishment. I gave a slight bow to the owner and the old woman from inside my car. They stared back at me with blank eyes, not averting their gaze. As I bowed again slightly, I noticed their feet. Their toes were pointing backward. In other words, while their faces were turned towards me, their bodies were facing the opposite direction. The child started swinging playfully, hanging from the owner and old woman's hands. The child's legs seemed to undulate unnaturally, as if the joints were in all the wrong places. It was probably just a few seconds, but I felt their gaze intensely. I instinctively knew I shouldn't make eye contact, so I hurriedly drove away, not even daring to look in the rearview mirror. Of course, I've never been back to that shop, nor have I taken that road again. I knew there wouldn't be a next time. Something told me that acknowledging what I'd seen would only invite more encounters, drawing me deeper into their world.